Sean Bergen knew he was breaking the rules. The reporter for New Jersey's News 12 was describing the intense reaction to his interview with the wife of a cop killer. And then he denounced what he called the anti-cop mentality in urban America.
This same sick, perverse line of thinking is evident from Jersey City to Newark and Patterson to Trenton. It has made the police officer's job impossible, and it has got to stop. The underlying cause for all of this, of course, young black men growing up without fathers. Unfortunately, no one in the news media has the courage to touch that subject.
The station suspended Bergen and then demoted him to a $300 job with one weekly assignment, saying its policy is that reporters must be objective and not declare personal opinions on the air. Bergen quickly resigned, and he explained what he did with Megyn Kelly.
I was trying to add some context and balance, and yes, and look, there's no doubt that I went off the reservation. I made a couple of rogue remarks at the end. I knew what I was doing.
I say what Sean Bergen did was courageous, and you say?
I think well, let's have a little more context here. Let's also remind people that the woman he interviewed, late husband, had killed a policeman, and then the woman said herself, "I wish he'd shot more cops." I mean, and that's so offensive and heinous that it obviously set him off. He spoke to something that Juan Williams addressed 5 or 6 years ago in his book, Enough about the pathological black culture. Too bad that book, he should have, if Bergen had cited that book on the air and said, as expert Juan Williams says, he might still have his job.
But the way Sean Bergen put it when he talked about black men from fatherless families committing crimes without any qualification, did you find that in any way offensive?
Offensive? No, it's true. That's the thing. But it would be great if he had, Howie, the statistics, the research at that point to back it up on the air, because I think then it would have made it seem that he was doing reporting at the moment rather than simply expressing his point of view.
The fact that it was off the cuff,
yeah, and the fact that it was
emotion.
The fact that it was in the moment. In other words, he's reporting on a crime story, and then suddenly he's expressing this opinion. That's where Sean himself, who I think is a hero to me now for having dared to say this, he himself says he went rogue by doing that. He understands that. But let me just say that what he tried to do is right. There's so many times when you see stories reported and people don't get to the root cause and the truth of the heart of the matter, and Sean Bergen did that.
He had no business doing what he did. His job is as a reporter. I've been on the streets of Washington, D.C. I've covered stories exactly like this, and I know that if I had uttered an opinion about this, I would have been fired. That is his job. If he wants to editorialize, then he needs to go to his bosses and say, I want to do a piece on X. He's not being courageous. He's breaking the rules, Howie.
You think he should have been fired?
I do. I do. That's his, I mean, he brought up an issue that is very important to society and to this country, but he is not the person to do it.
If you go to, say, the Media Research Center or Newsbusters, you see all the time reporters expressing opinions on issues, mostly on the left, and they don't get fired. Oftentimes nothing happens to them at all. In this case, I think the hysterical reaction of News 12 to fire him or push him out was overkill.
Might have been. But let me just say, also this week in the news, you had 2 reporters working in the Middle East who expressed opinions and got sanctioned for it. One, Diana Magnay, who wrote in a tweet something about the Israelis watching her over Gaza and saying if she uttered the wrong word, she was in trouble. She called them a terrible name. And then you had, Ayman Mohan of NBC taken off because they were seeing that his coverage, in their opinion, was favorable to the Palestinians. He was then put back. But again, you can't express opinion, even in a tweet, even in terms of your coverage. You have to be careful.
So how is it
but neither of them were fired. That's the point. Neither of them were fired, unlike Bergen.
How is it different, then, from this case, Juan? You can't express opinion, period.
This guy got fired. It's a difference.
Well, he got demoted in a way that he didn't have much of a job left. And I agree he broke the rules. He says he broke the rules, and there should be some punishment. And we always talk here about a reporter should give you straight news. So I agree with you to that extent. I just think the punishment was too harsh. What if he'd been suspended for a couple of days, and the station had said, since there's so much attention here, you're going to do a 3-part series on urban crime, the role of fatherless families, attitudes toward police. Why?
But we also don't know his history there. And on Meghan's show, he took a pot shot at the news director, saying he's made other bad calls. So we don't know. We don't know the whole history here. Has he done it before? Has he been reprimanded? I mean, we just don't know.
Well, what we do know is a real issue. Again, Juan's book, what Howie said about the three-part series, whether you think the issue is too many guns or fatherless children, either way, it's a great discussion, and there's a larger context here in which, in this case, that triggered all this, a innocent policeman, who's Hispanic, by the way, gets murdered and ambushed. And
give me the statistic when you're reporting on it. Don't just make it your opinion.
Well,
Say,
the statistics are that this weekend in Chicago, just alone, 22 people shot in 12 hours.
We get final word.
I just think it's important that there's a black journalist organization that said, well, there's no direct correlation between fatherlessness and shooting cops. I would agree with that. But again, the root cause is dysfunction in that community, a black community that's poor and very much anti-authority, and Sean Bergen was right about it.
Juan Williams, Jim Pinkerton, thanks very much. Ahead on Media Buzz, my conversation with John McCain about why some of what's written about him makes him mad. But first, could Rupert Murdoch end up owning HBO, Warner Brothers, and the rest of Time Warner? Charlie Gasparino on whether that $80 billion bid could succeed.